Have you ever been alone at night, in a quiet house, only to hear something moving? That subtle shift of air, a door creaking, or even whispers that seem to linger just beyond the reach of your hearing. You try to brush it off. Just the house settling, right? But deep down, you know something isn't right. This is more than just the wind or the usual nighttime sounds. Sometimes, the darkest corners hold more than shadows. They hold memories, restless and yearning to be remembered. And they will make themselves known when you're most vulnerable, alone in the silence of the night. This happened to me one bitterly cold winter evening. I had just moved into a secluded old house, the kind that looks inviting during the day, but takes on an entirely different life at night. It was my first night alone there, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't truly by myself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I made myself a cup of tea and settled into the living room, trying to push away my unease. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, but it wasn't the storm that kept me on edge. It was the creeping sensation that someone, or something, was watching me. I tried to dismiss it, thinking it was just the stress of moving, but then the power went out. Total darkness enveloped the room, and I fumbled for my phone to use as a flashlight. The eerie quiet seemed to deepen, almost suffocating. As I sat in that darkened living room, I heard it. A faint tapping, like fingernails on wood. It wasn't from the windows or the walls, but from the hallway just beyond the door. My heart raced. I waited, listening intently, but the sound didn't come again. I told myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. The house was old after all. Still, my instincts told me to check. Grabbing my phone, I made my way to the hallway, shining the light towards the staircase that led up to the second floor. It was there that I saw something that made my blood run cold. A shadow, tall and thin, moved across the top of the staircase. I froze. I tried to call out, but no words came. The air grew cold, thick with an unnatural presence. The shadow didn't move like a person. It seemed to glide, like it wasn't quite tethered to the floor. And then it stopped at the top of the stairs, as if waiting for me to acknowledge it. I did the only thing I could think of. I ran. I bolted back to the living room, locking the door behind me. My heart hammered in my chest. I texted a friend, telling them I thought I had seen a shadow figure, but they didn't respond. I sat there in silence, listening to the wind howl outside, praying that it was just my imagination. But then, I heard it again. The same faint tapping, but this time it was coming from inside the room with me. I turned the flashlight towards the source of the sound, my hands trembling. It was coming from the corner by the fireplace, where the shadows seemed darker than usual. The tapping grew louder and more frantic. I dared not move closer, but I had to know what was causing it. Slowly I stood up, my legs like jelly, and stepped toward the corner. That's when I saw it. An old wooden doll. It was perched on the mantel, staring at me with empty glass eyes. It hadn't been there before. I knew that for a fact. I hadn't placed it there. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. But it was as if the doll had always been there, waiting for me to notice it. The tapping stopped the moment I reached out to touch it. A cold, familiar sensation washed over me, and I felt like I was being pulled into something dark. Suddenly, I heard the door behind me creak open. I spun around in panic, but there was no one there. The room was empty. Empty except for me, the doll, and the oppressive silence. I knew then that I wasn't alone in that house, and whatever it was had been waiting for me. I had no way of knowing how long it had been watching, or when it would leave me in peace. All I knew was that I was now a part of its story, trapped, as helpless as the doll, waiting for the next nightfall.